By now, you filed the summons with notice and you've received a copy. Either we filed it or you filed it, but regardless, the summons with notice is filed. You gave the court the 210. You have a receipt that proves it, and you have an index number. The index number is simply proof that you have started a divorce in the court system. That's it. That's it. Tuck that summons with notice away, but first, before you do, make a copy, because this is what's going to happen. It's time to involve your spouse. Now, this may be short, because if your spouse agrees to sign, take a look at this. This is the affidavit defendant. This is the document that where your spouse signs in the presence of a notary, declaring that they comply and they're willing to move forward in agreement pertaining to the divorce matter. Now, again, they sign here in the presence of a notary, and it simply means that they agree. They're waiving all their rights, saying that they understand what's going on and they're ready to move forward. Simple explanation of procedure. Doesn't have to be anything complicated. If they sign this in the presence of a notary, you simply get it back to us. You can stop there, because I want to talk to the people whose spouse is not going to sign. You ready? You can go if they're going to sign. The only people that should still be here now are those who know that their spouse is not going to sign. You ready for this? This is what you have to do. If your spouse isn't going to sign, you have to prove to the court that they're aware that the divorce is happening. How do you do that? How do you do that? Really simple. Because if they signed, it's obvious that the court knows that the person knows what's going on. They signed in front of a notary. They read the thing, right? Okay. But in the event that they won't sign, the court says, we have an answer for you. Do you have a friend over the age of 18? Do you have a family member over the age of 18? If there's a child from the marriage, you can't use them. Keep them out of it. Divorce is tough enough on the kids. But if you have anyone over the age of 18, they can simply take the filed summons with notice that you've received from the court and they deliver it to your spouse. That's it. That's what being served looks like. Some people say, well, what happens if they don't take it? I ask you this. If I prepared a meal for you and I served you and placed it in front of you and you didn't eat, that doesn't mean I didn't serve you, does it? Of course it means I served you. Simply because you don't accept it doesn't mean you weren't served. So a lot of people wonder, or they call the office and said, I tried to get it to them and they just dropped it in the street, or they ran, or they refused to accept it. Serving simply means you're giving them the opportunity to receive it. Unfortunately, you can't do it by mail. The court won't permit you to do it by mail unless the judge approves of it. But you can get anyone over the age of 18 to deliver it to them personally by hand. Now, let's say you don't want to involve friends. You don't want to involve family. You can simply hire a licensed process server. They tend to charge anywhere between $75 or $150, sometimes a little higher. Or you can get the local sheriff's office, which I tend to use as a last resort because the sheriff's office is very busy. That's number one. Number two, they also will inform you that they only make one attempt. And they don't go during the times that you suggest. They go whenever their schedule permits. So that typically doesn't guarantee that effective service will take place. So you tend to want to use someone you know that has a bit more flexibility in their schedule, or hire a licensed company that's required to go out at least 3 times by law. Now, I'll say this to you. They're required to go out 3 times by law. That doesn't guarantee that they'll get the person. So you want to be as helpful as possible. Give the server, whether it's a friend, family member, or a licensed professional, or the sheriff's office, give them a picture. Tell them where your spouse works. Tell them the times they can find your spouse at home. And on top of that, be aware that by law, they're permitted to serve anywhere from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So that's a big window of time that they can be served. They can't be served on Sundays, or if they engage in any particular faith, they cannot be served on a religious holiday. Other than that, everything's off the table. You can have them served. And I promise you, it's not as hard as it thinks. So again, if your spouse is going to sign and have the document notarized, no need to have them served. But if they're not, and you tend to have a good idea whether your spouse is going to cooperate or not, then you want to employ the methods I just mentioned over the past 2 minutes or so and get your spouse served. Once it's done, whether the document's served or they signed, you want to get that paperwork back to us. Why? Because that's the only way we'll get to step 4. And step 4 is where we wrap everything up. Tune in.